Welcome. Now, if you're a library or information professional, you've probably heard the name PRECIS thrown around. But what is it really? In this explainer, we're pulling back the curtain on the Preserved Context Index system, a truly landmark system in the world of subject indexing. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with what PRECIS is and the problem it was built to solve. Then we'll dig into its core logic and see it work step by step with a real example. We'll also check out some of its more advanced tricks before we wrap up with a little history lesson on where it came from. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, first things first. What exactly is the Preserved Context Index System, or PRECIS? It popped up in the early 1970s, and let me tell you, it was a genuine game changer. It was designed to be this perfect bridge between the smarts of a human indexer and the raw power of early computers. At its heart, PRECIS is all about teamwork. You've got the human indexer doing the intellectual heavy lifting, really analyzing the subject of a document. Then they hand it off to the computer, which does the grunt work of generating tons of comprehensive index entries. And the number one rule? The full meaning of the subject has to stay intact, no matter which keyword a user starts their search with. This really nails the core problem PRECIS was designed to fix. See, older methods like chain indexing, well, they had this nasty habit of dropping terms to create entries. You'd end up with what they called a disappearing chain, where you'd literally lose the context. PRECIS said, nope, not happening. It keeps all the pieces of the puzzle together in every single entry. No more lost context. So what was the big goal when they created this? And what are the features that really make it stand out from the crowd in the world of indexing? The main drivers here were efficiency and consistency. The idea was brilliant. Let the human focus on the hard part, the actual subject analysis. Once that's done, let the computer handle the tedious job of generating every single index entry needed. Plus, it was built to be future-proof, with an open-ended vocabulary that could grow as new concepts and terms emerged. And this is where you really see its elegance. Because of its smart grammatical structure, the indexed entries actually read like natural language, not just a random list of keywords. It's also incredibly flexible. It's not tied down to any one classification system like Dewey or LC, and it can even be adapted for other languages. But above all, context is king, which makes for a way better, more intuitive search experience for the user. Okay, let's pop the hood and look at the engine. There are two fundamental principles that make this whole system work. These two principles are the absolute foundation. First, you've got context dependency. Think of it like a set of Russian nesting dolls. Each term sets the context for the one that comes after it, usually moving from the general to the more specific. And second, the one-to-one relationship principle just makes sure that these terms form a nice, clean chain, where every single link is logically and directly connected to the next one. All right, theory is great, but PRECIS is one of those things that really clicks when you see it in action. So let's walk through an example together. So, picture this. You're an indexer. A document comes across your desk with a simple title, something like University Libraries in West Bengal. But after you actually analyze it, you realize the real subject is much more specific. It's actually about the measurement of the performance of university libraries in West Bengal. So how does PRECIS handle that deeper subject? The whole process is broken down into 5 clear steps. It all starts with the human brain, analyzing the subject. Then, the indexer creates a special coded input string. After that, the computer takes the wheel. It generates all the index entries, creates the cross-references, and finally puts everything in alphabetical order to create the final index. Now, to build that input string, the indexer uses these little codes called role operators. You can think of them as instructions that tell the computer the grammatical role of each term. Here are some of the big ones: an @0 for the location, an @1 for the main topic or thing, @2 for the action, and this other little operator, P, for a part or a property of something. So going back to our subject, the indexer builds this input string. You can totally see the logic, right? West Bengal is the location, so it gets a 0. Universities are the key system, so they get a 1. Libraries are a part of universities, and performance is a property of the libraries, and finally, measurement is the action, so it gets a 2. Okay, that string gets fed into the computer. What's the first thing it does? Well, to make the first entry, it just grabs that very first term, West Bengal, and makes it the lead entry. The entire rest of the string then tucks in right below it in what's called the display. And just like that, the full context is perfectly preserved. Now here's where the real magic happens. To create the second entry, the computer promotes the next term in line, universities, to be the new lead. But what about West Bengal? It doesn't get thrown away. Instead, it moves up into the qualifier position right next to the lead, providing that crucial context. This elegant little dance of moving terms around is called shunting, and it is the absolute core of how PRECIS works. And that shunting process just keeps going, rinse and repeat for every term that the indexer flagged as an important access point. Libraries get to turn in the spotlight, with universities in West Bengal as its qualifiers. Then performance gets to be the lead. What you get in the end is this amazing, comprehensive set of entry points where a user can find the document no matter which of these key ideas they start with. But hold on, PRECIS is even more versatile than that. It can actually produce a few different styles of entries depending on the specific codes the indexer uses. The format we just worked through is called the standard format. It's the most common one you'll see in PRECIS, with that clean, two-line structure. You have the lead term, the qualifier up top, and the display line down below. It's the go-to for your core concepts like locations, key systems, and actions. But for other kinds of concepts, like maybe a particular viewpoint or the form of a document, like a report, PRECIS uses something called the inverted format. Here, the lead term is followed by a dash, and then the entire subject string is just written out on one line. It makes it feel a bit more like a sentence while still keeping all that context. And this one is just so clever. When the agent of an action, the person or group doing the action, is the lead term, the system does this thing called a predicate transformation. Instead of a clunky entry like planning, libraries, by architects, the entry for architects just reads planning of libraries. It automatically rephrases it to sound completely natural. It's brilliant. Okay, to wrap things up, let's quickly put PRECIS into its historical context, because that really helps you understand why it was such a necessary breakthrough at the time. So, why did PRECIS even need to exist? Well, for decades, the British National Bibliography had been using an older system called chain indexing, and it worked for its time, but it was entirely manual, and it just wasn't cut out for the coming age of computerization and the new MARC format. PRECIS was the answer. It was designed from the ground up to take advantage of computer power to create a way richer, more robust index. And that brings us to a really interesting final thought. While the PRECIS system itself might be a product of the 70s, its core ideas, things like structured syntax, clear relationships between terms, and above all, the absolute preservation of context, feel more relevant today than ever. In our modern world of linked data, semantic search, and AI, what lessons can we still learn from this powerful and elegant idea? It's definitely something to think about.